Hello, my name is Anna-Maija. I work as a senior university lecturer in the University of Lapland, Finland. Our university is situated exactly on the Arctic Circle. I used to be a mathematics teacher in an upper secondary school, but then I defended my thesis and found myself working in the University of Lapland in elementary school teacher training. I love Swaziland. I've been there many times. For 6 years I traveled there every summer, our summer, and I taught mathematics education in the Educate project to the students who prepared themselves to become preschool teachers. That's the reason how I know Dr. Siklela Dlamini too. I love Swaziland, Eswatini. You are in my heart. I find two topic areas most important in preschool mathematics. The first one is the so-called pre-mathematical skills, and another is the development of the number concept. Pre-mathematical skills are very seldom mentioned in curricula as a group of skills. You find a sentence here and then another sentence in another place if you read some curriculum very carefully. Pre-mathematical skills are mental skills and thinking skills, which if a child masters them, he or she is most probably mature to start education at school. Think of a child who, for example, cannot act according to one-to-one correspondence when counting objects. 1, 2, 3, 5. He or she may skip over objects or skip over number words. Or a child who doesn't understand that the last number mentioned when counting tells you the number of objects in that group. How on earth can that kind of child understand numbers, their bonds, addition and subtraction in the grade 1 of preschool? During this video, I'm going to discuss with you the most important pre-mathematical skills. And I also have a task for you. Classifying is the first pre-mathematical skill I want to discuss with you. In our society and in education, we think and communicate in terms of increasingly abstract concepts. Classifying is a way to start understanding concepts and their relationships. Classification is based on concepts of similar and different. A good advice for all mathematical topics for very little children is that if you can, please start with activities which involve the children's own bodies. A teacher can, for example, start classifying. This is the activity 1 on page 2 in the resource booklet. Teacher can first have all children in a center of the class and give some dolls to the children. And then one by one teacher asks the children to go to particular places in the classroom. Girls to one place. She can say, possessive, leave your doll where you are and go to that place. And that the same thing she will tell all the girls. And then a boy, the teacher tells, go to the other place, leave your doll also where you are. And after this, the teacher doesn't necessarily tell the criteria behind this grouping or classifying. she can tell that, she can then ask, the result is that in the classroom you now have a group of girls, a group of boys, and a group of dolls. And then the teacher can start asking, what is similar in this group, pointing to the group of girls. And the children will of course notice they are all girls. And the same way, in the group of boys they are all boys, and in the group of dolls they are all dolls. And then you can also continue discussing how are these groups different or similar. Okay, girls and boys together, they are children, they are living human beings, but dolls are not, they are toys. So classification is based on concepts of similar and different. And there are many different ways to do and start teaching the classification, actually. I divide between holistic way of classifying and one-by-one classification. Normally we look at the group of all the objects at the same time and try to sketch what kind of groups can we make from those objects. Objects in the home environment are also very concrete to children. If you were asked to put me to put these objects in the same groups, I would start doing this way. These here. Put these together. I would make 3 groups of objects. And when you have done that, no, this belongs to here. When you have done that, you better start thinking what is similar in them and what is different from the other groups. These here are tools you eat food with. Put food into your mouth, except knife, but it helps the fork. So these are used to put food into your mouth. And these are actually called cutlery. These are dishes that contain the food. Actually cups you also put in the mouth. These we call dishes. And what is the other group? The third group. They are objects which are used in preparing food. Through classification, we end up to higher level concepts than just the individual objects. This is a fork, but these fork, spoon and knife together, they make cutlery. And so on. So classification is a means to get from lower level concepts to higher level concepts. Another way to start classifying, especially when you start to do it with little children, is classifying object by object. You first take one object and then take another object which you compare to that one. How is this new object similar to the previous, and how it is different? Okay, these look very similar, the shape is similar. The materials they are made of are different. This is made of wood and this is made of metal. And also the purpose for which we use these are different. This fork is used when preparing food, mainly on the frying pan, and then mixing some liquids maybe. And this fork is used in the the table for eating food from the dishes. Now the crucial question is, are they similar enough so that we put them in the same class, or are they different enough that they make separate classes? Okay, I put them in separate classes because the material is different and the use is different. Then you take third object, which is class in this case. What does this have in similar with the others? Okay, this is used in kitchen or for eating. How is this different? The material it has been made is different, the shape is different, and the way, the purpose we use this for is different. So I would make a third group of this. Plate then has a completely different shape and material than the two different types of forks. This is different material also than the glass, but these are used together when eating. So I have to decide if I want to make a separate group of this, the fourth class, or do I want to include it here? I want to include it now in the same class with the glass. When doing this object by object classifying, you can always rearrange the classes later if you think is appropriate. I have shown you the holistic classification, where we look at all the objects at the same time, and then object by object classification. There are also other ways of thinking classification or using classification as a working method. Whenever you ask children to classify a particular group of objects, if you don't give the criteria, then all justifiable criteria that children can present, they should be accepted as right answers. But the teacher, for a particular purpose, can also tell the criteria. If you want to use classification as a working method in geometry, you can ask children to classify a group of plane figures by shape. If needed, sometimes it's sensible to give the number of classes children have to end up. I remember one student teacher of mine, she gave groups of first graders some geometrical objects made of plane figures made of plastic. There were circles, triangles, squares and rectangles. And the topic of the lesson was circles, triangles and quadrilaterals. And the plastic plane figures, they appeared in 4 different colors. 3 different colors, sorry. And the student teacher asked the children to classify the objects into 3 classes. And in practice, there were 2 different ways to do it right, either to classify according to color or then classify according to shape. But in that case, you had to put squares and rectangles into the same group. And luckily, there were both types of groups. Some groups ended to classifying according to color, but there were also groups who ended up to classifying according to shape, so that one group was the circles, one group was the triangles, and one group the children put both the squares and the rectangles. And they all are actually quadrilaterals. Okay, so you can give the criteria, you can give the number of classes, but you can also give all the classes, like you do when we sort out the rubbish we produce in our homes.